ridiculous. Because all I need here at WVOE. It's time now. It's time now for the health facts here at WVOE with Dr. Brown. Stay tuned. All right, Dr. Brown, you online?
All right. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that, as always. All right, good afternoon, listeners. You're locked into WVOE, the voice of Ebony, where your health is our heartbeat. I'm Dr. Christopher Brown, president and founder of PressureMDAcademy, welcoming you to another enriching session of Health Facts, the show where wisdom meets wellness and knowledge is always in season. So today we're going to be going for our second part two of the pressure to power, where we're going to be talking to you about this condition called high blood pressure. We're going to talk to you about last week we talked a little bit about how to we defined high blood pressure, talked about kind of how it's diagnosed and things of this nature, and kind of went over the impact of why this is so important not only to our community but also to individuals. And so today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going a little bit. I don't know if deeper is the right word for it, but definitely going into a little bit more about what you can do about this condition, because one of the things I do find when talking to people about and not just high blood pressure but a lot of different medical issues is that most people think that they really don't have a lot of power, a lot of control, but for the most part, most people, especially when it comes to high blood pressure, you have a lot more power than you think you have. Okay, you're not powerless. And like even with conditions that are genetic, so like hypertension has genetic linkages, which means that there can be trends in people's genes or in your family history. So your genes, they may load the gun, but your habits, for most part, your habits are what pull the trigger. Your habits are what can really cause you to cause these diseases to really manifest themselves within your body. And so hypertension is one of those. And what I mean by that is that, okay, and they describe this as a kind of a two-hit thing. So your genes may be there, but if you don't live a certain way, like I said, you may avoid that particular disease, or it may just occur a lot later on. So sometimes you can't avoid it all the way, but you might push it off 5, 10, 20 years, based off how you live. And so that's one of the reasons why, lifestyle is very important. And like I said, I did do certification in lifestyle, and lifestyle medicine has 6 pillars, and that is nutrition, physical activity, sleep, stress management, social connection, and avoiding risky substances. And what I've seen in kind of in my practice is that those things are huge, and managing this particular disorder of hypertension, and we'll kind of go through that a little bit as we talk along here. So you have more power than you think. So don't think that just because you got this diagnosis that is, that you can't do anything about it, or that you got to suffer some consequences. No, you can change your habits. You can discipline yourself to and really change your outcome, change your life, and also change your the life of those around you. Because yet again, if it's a genetic disorder, or a gene or something that's linked genetically, once you, especially those of you that are family people, and like I said, like I said, if you're the dad, mom, especially those fathers in there, if you find, hey, hypertension runs in my family, what you can do is that you can be much more aware, not only for yourself but also for the rest of the family. So for your kids, for your your siblings, you might be the person that changes the outcome. So say that everybody had a stroke from hypertension at age 60, like your dad, your granddad, the whole things of nature. You find this out and you say, I'm gonna change life. So you decide to eat better, exercise a little bit more and get yourself checked out. You may not get it, you may not get that stroke at age 60. It might be 70, 80, 90, if you're able to make those changes. And so you have a lot more power and control, and not just for you. It can also be for your family, your friends, and things of this nature. Okay, so I always want everybody to make sure that they remember that part of this. So when it comes to high blood pressure, yet again, we talked about the number. Make sure you know your numbers. Make sure you check your numbers within the last year. Make sure that you have a good primary care clinician that can kind of follow you with this sort of thing. So once you get diagnosed, and once they tell you that you've got high blood pressure, now this is when you really, okay, so you found it out. Now it's time for real power. It's time for real control. This is when you're in the spotlight. Okay, and what do you want to do whenever this happens? And one of the things that I tell every patient that I diagnose with high blood pressure, every patient gets this thing right. And I tell them to go and get one of these devices right here. It is called a blood pressure machine. Okay. So when you go in the doc, you're going to put your arm in there and they're going to tell you got high blood pressure. Once you get that diagnosis, I mean, you can actually get it beforehand, probably have one anyway, but once you get that diagnosis, you want to make sure you get a blood pressure machine and take it to your house. Okay. They range from from low cost to like really fancy ones and things of nature, but you want to make sure that you get one. And one of the reasons for this is this, because a lot of people will use this term called white coat hypertension, and they use that to try to not take the medications or the treatment, or be in denial. They're like, oh, my blood pressure is just high because I'm in the clinic. Well, if you have a blood pressure machine at home, guess what? You can take your blood pressure machine at home at different times during the day. What does that do? So now when you go in and your blood pressure is high at home and high at the office, you know what this is. But say that your blood pressure is normal at home and it's high in the doctor's office. Well, okay, then that might be something going on there. So what's the other thing that you're going to want to do? You want to take your blood pressure machine with you to the doctor's office. Okay, so you want to make sure you take this machine with you to the doctor's office. Okay, so what's that all about? The reason why you want to do that is because you're going to want to make sure that the reading that you're getting is the same. Oh, this thing's kind of going on in and out. Is the same as the blood pressure on the blood pressure in the office and the blood pressure on the machine are reading the same. Now, once you take it in and they get everything checked out, then at that point in time, they can, like I said, we know that we're getting the same readings. Okay, so this is a instrumental part of gaining control and getting that power over your healthcare. It's to go get you a blood pressure machine, take your blood pressure at home, a matter of fact, keep a blood pressure log, and take that all into the doctor's office so that they can make sure it helps with making clinical decisions about whether to take medications up, whether to take medications down. Also, as you're trying to adjust, if your doc makes a medication adjustment and your blood pressure goes down low and you just stop taking your meds, nobody knows, was it really the blood pressure? Was it something else going on? Maybe you have some low blood sugar. We don't know. But like I said, once you get the data helps tell the story, and it helps with making decisions. Okay. So, all right. And in terms of blood pressure machines, because of course, everybody's got this question about, what type. So a lot of people like to get the wrist ones, a little convenient. Now they are better than they used to be, but I know at one point in time we kind of always advise people to get blood pressure machines that go up on the arm. The FDA actually has a website where they list blood pressure machines that are basically evaluated by the FDA, and so those are supposed to be much more reliable. I think what we'll do is we'll probably send that out on on some, we'll share that with everybody so that everybody can have that. But it's if you type in blood pressure machine FDA, that list will come up where they were just where they will send you to a website and you can look up any blood pressure machine and see whether or not it's on the list of FDA approved blood pressure devices. Okay, so make sure you keep that in mind. So now you're doing what we call home blood pressure monitoring. That's going to help you out a little bit. So you want to make sure you're doing that. So now that just helps to adjust. So now in terms of treatment or management of your high blood pressure, I usually separate them into two separate arms. Okay, so there is the medication, which is typical. I mean, that's typical what you're going to get. So medications, and then you got the lifestyle arm. But I usually tell people that for most people, they're going to wind up needing a little bit of both. Okay. Now there are some people that go to lifestyle arm and they never needed meds, but most of the people would benefit from both. So now, so you have a new diagnosis of hypertension, your blood pressure is elevated, they're gonna suggest certain medications. And now when it comes to blood pressure medication, sometimes those medications have to be switched around because some of those medications have more than one role on the body. So while they do take care of blood pressure, they may have other effects. So, there's a class of medication called beta blockers. I feel like that's something that a lot of people know. And those medications, they affect the blood pressure, but they also slow down the heart and can be heart protective depending on what's going on there. Then they have medications, we call them ACE inhibitors or angiotensin receptor blockers, ACEs or ARBs. Those medications can be useful for protecting the kidney. So sometimes people think about those. And then there are medications, like if you got a little swelling, like I said, there are medication we can give you that'll take the fluid off the legs, and it'll also affect the blood pressure. So there are multiple different classes. There's a lot of different medications that are out there. The thing I would say about the blood pressure medications are, number one, when they write you a medication, make sure they tell you whether or not it's for high blood pressure, and also they can tell you whether or not it does anything else in the body. So is this helping my kidneys? Is it helping my heart? And they can tell you whether or not it's doing something. Yeah, if they chose it because it does more than one thing. Okay, so you want to know, what the medication is, what it's being used for, and ask if there are any common side effects, because there's certain medications like, I think the big ones are what we call the ACE inhibitors, medications like lisinopril, that you have to be aware that they can cause, number one, cough. So a person gets that, and a couple months later they're having a cough and don't know where it's from. A lot of times those medications can be related to that cough. The other thing that's a little more concerning is something they call angioedema. And this is particular for African Americans, where, for whatever reason, and that person can be on this medication for years, and then all of a sudden they start having some swelling, and that swelling can be pretty severe. You can be hospitalized for it. So, if you're on that class of medications, you need to know that, number one, you're on that class of medications, and number two, to watch out so that if you get some swelling, that you don't just kind of brush it off, that you go ahead and seek care immediately for that. So that's just something to know. So know some of the main side effects and know what to do about those. So that's very important for all the medications that you may be taking. The other thing is this: for medications, please, if you start taking a medication and you get a side effect, make sure that you tell the person that prescribed it for you, because all they have to do is stop that medication and start another one. Okay. And sometimes it could be, medication within the same class. You might have a side effect with one, not a side effect with the other. But don't just stop taking the medication. If you have side effects, make sure you tell the person that prescribed the medication so they can get you get you something else if that's clinically appropriate, okay? Because that's a big thing that I see. And one of the big ones is, of course, the beta blockers, because the beta blockers can make you a little tired. I mean, like they're they're slowing heart rates, stuff of nature. Sometimes it takes you a little while to get used to it, and other times you may need it for another reason. But and then the other thing that it can cause, it can cause erectile dysfunction, or it can lead to erectile dysfunction. So if those sort of things are happening, when you go into your doctor, your nurse practitioner, PA's office, make sure you tell them so that they can either switch those medications around, or if you need them, kind of figure ways around those particular side effects. Okay, so don't just stop taking the medication. Do not stop taking it. The other thing is this: whoever is managing your high blood pressure, tell them if you are or if you're not taking the medications. Because this is another thing that I see with folks. They will say, "Oh, I'm taking the medications. Blood pressure super high." Somebody writes either for another medication or takes the medication up. And the blood pressure and their blood pressure remains high. They come back again. Blood pressure still high. "Oh, I'm taking the medication." Somebody write, you increase the medication, add another medication. And this keeps going on until they have, some folks have 4 or 5 medications, blood pressure still under control. Well, usually what will happen is that this person will wind up in the hospital for whatever reason, procedures, emergencies, whatever. And, they have listed all these medications. And, so, hey, in the hospital, you get those medications. All of a sudden, the blood pressure is super low and everybody's trying to figure out what's going on. And it comes to find out that, oh, well, I didn't tell the truth to my clinician, and therefore my clinician, my doc, and therefore, when you add all these medications together, the blood pressure is super low. So you wind up backing them all off, trying to find out they only needed 2 medications to control their blood pressure, and you kind of go from there. So transparency, honesty is quintessential. It is essential in making sure that you get the right care, that you get the proper care. Okay, so make sure you're doing that. So that's for the medications. So the other thing is, we kind of touched on it a little bit, and that is lifestyle changes. So hypertension, one of the reasons why I really kind of like focusing on hypertension is that for a lot of people, if you change certain things in your lifestyle, blood pressure either gets better, or for some people, even you eliminate the blood pressure. It's one of the few diseases. I think the diabetes type 2 does as well, but hypertension is one of those diseases where there are certain things that we do in our life that can directly affect your blood pressure and cause it to go high. Okay, and so we kind of touched a little bit about this the lifestyle medicine approach to chronic diseases, and this includes hypertension, and those pillars that we talked about a little bit. Okay, and so that's where you get the nutrition. And so when it comes to hypertension, everybody knows salt, right? Everybody knows salt. So, you want to make sure that you're taking in less salt. And that's because, the recommendations are for people to be taking no more than 2 grams of sodium daily if they have hypertension. But the average, the American diet is many times over that recommendation of 2 grams of sodium daily. Also, they're finding out more and more things about sugar. So this refined sugar that we're getting in everything, that also can contribute to high blood pressure as well. And so one of the recommendations that those of us that practice lifestyle medicine do recommend, and that is a whole food, plant-based diet. Now, I say a whole food, plant predominant, because I still eat a little meat. So yeah, it's a whole food, plant-based, and that is whole food. So you want it as close to nature as possible. So you don't want things minimally processed. So you want to consume foods that are minimally processed, and then plant-based. So you want to increase the fiber, increase high fiber foods, and increase plant-based foods inside of your diet, because for the most part, the American diet is really devoid of fiber. Okay. And fiber does a couple of things. We can probably talk about this in a future session. Fiber, can kind of fuel you. So like if you're trying to lose weight, it can kind of help you with what we call satiety, or feeling like you're full. So that's a good thing that comes from fiber. Also, like I said, it kind of helps the GI tract, so it has a lot of good things to it as well. So so whole food, plant based or plant predominant diet. And if you are eating meat, like I said, of course, we recommend most folks will recommend fish and chicken. Like I said, less red meat, and if you do eat the red meat, make sure it's lean cuts. So those things are what's or what lifestyle medicine typically will recommend. Of course, you have to talk with your clinician to see if that's appropriate for you. So nutrition. So like that means putting up the salt and putting up the chips. Not eating the chips. Not minimize eating out. Like I said, eat some salads, eat some beans. Those sort of things are what you want to focus on, and don't add a lot of salt, because and when it comes to watching your salt, you can of course read labels, but even if you're cooking at home, if you don't use the salt when you're cooking, and you add a little bit of salt whenever it's on the plate, that usually will help with the taste. So, like I said, it'll help you with making this food a little more palatable, but you won't have quite as much sodium in it, because most of the sodium that we take in is put into food during the either processing or during the cooking time. So that's one thing you could do in order to minimize the amount of sodium that you're taking in. So that's for the nutrition part. Then we got physical activity. So of course, physical activity is helpful, and the nutrition and physical activity. I mean, really, they have independent ways that they help, but then of course, one of the big things is by limiting obesity or helping you to lose weight. And so physical activity, it's recommended, around 10,000 steps a day. You want to get about 150 minutes of moderate exercise in, a week. And one of the things is that people recognize a little bit more now, is that weight-based exercises are very helpful, because when you do weight-based exercise, it helps maintain or even increase muscle mass. And muscle actually helps. It's metabolically active, so it kind of helps utilize a lot of the calories, nutrients, and stuff that you take in. So definitely consider, adding a little weight to your physical activity if it's safe to do so. So that's one of the things you want to do as well. A special word about obesity. Obesity is linked to hypertension, and as a matter of fact, one of the things one of the things that losing weight can do is it actually can help lower your blood pressure. Even 3 to 5 pounds a lot of times can be equivalent to an additional blood pressure medication. So don't neglect losing weight for those of you that have higher BMIs. So yet again, but those are it's a little complicated, but just kind of in general. So nutrition, physical activity, sleep. So make sure you're getting some good sleep. A lot of us have some very poor sleep habits. You got TVs in the room. You're scrolling on your phone and stuff of that nature. It really does interfere with sleeping. So you want to make sure that you get what we call good sleep hygiene, and make sure you go get some good rest. You want to close shades, cut devices off, and get some good solid sleep. If you do notice that your sleep is disturbed, or if someone tells you that you're snoring, you want to make sure that you're getting screened for sleep apnea, because it can be associated with both obesity as well as hypertension. So you want to make sure you get that checked out as well. Stress management. Okay, when you're stressed, you release certain hormones. Those hormones can cause high blood pressure. So you want to make sure that you're keeping your stress under control. So some people are a little more sensitive to stressors than other people are. So you always want to be cautious about that. So when it comes to stress or how to manage stress, just find things that work for you. Meditation is one of the things that meditation and mindfulness, prayer. Like I said, we are on a Christian radio station, so prayer is huge. Like I said, the Christian religion, this actually is one of the things that's actually taught in our religion, and that is to get the burdens of the world off of you and pass it on to God, to Jesus, right? So if you are a Christian listening to this, make sure that you know your Christianity and spirituality is not really separate from your physical life. Our the goal of the Christian is really to kind of merge those two together, so that your management of your stress is also strengthening your spiritual life. Okay, so I want to make sure that you keep that in mind. Now, for those of you that are not, they're not, because meditation. You can try meditation. You can try mindfulness. And this is where you can kind of combine things, because what you can do is you can do a walk. They found that walking is actually can help a lot of people with stress. So, find a quiet place to walk, or walk with a friend or two. And like I said, that can actually kind of help to lower your stress, give you some time to yourself, so that you can lower the stress hormones that might be inside of your body. Okay, so that's something else. Social connections. So social connections and the social connection stress, they're kind of the same, unless your unless your social circles are the ones that's causing you stress. But for the most part, most people's social connections should be leading to less stress, and better coping mechanisms, hopefully. But social connections, we're humans. We're meant to connect. We're meant to be around other people. So try to find some social connection, whether it's just hanging out with some friends or family, finding activities that bring you together with other people. Those sort of things are actually very important. And then last is avoiding risky substances. And that is because these risky substances can contribute to hypertension. So one of the big ones is alcohol. So excess drinking directly is linked to high blood pressure. So if you are diagnosed with high blood pressure and you drink a lot, like daily, like I said, 3 or 4 beers a day or a couple of shots, one of the first things you're going to want to do is try cutting that out, and then seeing if that can get your blood pressure under control, because that can contribute. Other things, stuff like that. Hopefully not using cocaine or anything in nature, but of course, cocaine or any sort of stimulant can also raise the blood pressure. So that's something else as well. So that kind of wraps up, this second segment of health facts, where we're kind of talking about this high blood pressure. So of course we got 2 segments. We're going to be posting. We already posted the first one. This the second segment will also be posted, and the goal is really to use high blood pressure as sort of this advocacy vehicle to let people know not only what this is and what it can do, but also these techniques that I'm telling you for high blood pressure can be utilized in a lot of other diseases. So I just want to make sure that people understand this, and that this is something that is becomes a little more familiar. So if you're hearing these words, hearing these terms, getting these diagnoses, that this is no longer a shock. You can say, hey, you know what? Dr. Brown talked about that. Like I said, like, tell me a little bit more. How high is my blood pressure? What are the plans for getting this blood pressure under control? Hey, you know what? I'm going to get me a blood pressure machine. I'm going to check my blood pressure once or twice a day. And then hey, doc, what are you planning on doing next? How about I try some lifestyle changes? Is it safe to do so? So this is the way I want you to go when you go into that into that doctor's office is managing your high blood pressure. This is the way I want you to go. I want you to go there with armed with knowledge, armed with a little bit of hey, a doctor told me this, these options are available. Because when you go in there with this sort of knowledge, I hate to say it, but you are treated a little bit differently. Okay, so you want to go in there with some level of confidence, with some level of knowledge, so that you can be instrumental in managing this disease and preventing the outcomes, those end organ damages that we talked about on segment 1. We don't want you. I don't want you getting strokes. I don't want you having kidney failure. I don't want you having heart failure. I don't want you going blind over something that is easily diagnosed and for the great majority of people can be easily controlled. Okay, so thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me over these 2 sessions. If you didn't get session 1, please segment 1, please look up our video or send us an email, admin@PressureMD.com, and we can get that over to you. And sign up and follow our YouTube page as well, because like I said, there'll be more of these coming out. Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. And WVOE, as always, thank you for giving me that opportunity to kind of talk to the listeners of WVOE as well. And that's it for this session. And if people have questions, feel free to reach out to us.